Well, hello everyone. Want to take some time to make a very short little video to talk about a couple of concepts here: conformity, compliance, and obedience. Okay, how groups get us to conform, how they get us to comply, and how they get us to obey. Okay, so let's begin. All right. Really, the ultimate type of consumer behavior is conformity. All right. Conformity basically means we change our behavior to match that of other people. All right. We do it sometimes without even thinking about it. The whole idea behind this is that if we act like others act and they're cool or they're nice or we like what they're doing, then we do it too and we conform. Um, Conformity relies a lot on norms, usually unwritten rules of social behavior of how you act and what you do and how you carry on and so on. Okay. Now, why conform? Know this: imitating others is rewarding. Okay, imitating others' behavior, that's one of the reasons why. It's the sincerest form of flattery is imitation. And a lot of people do it. Look at fashion. Look at fashion. People turn around and what's fashionable right now. There has been a time where body jewelry was fashionable. There's a time when tattoos have been fashionable and still are. There's a time when certain types of clothes are fashionable. Do you wear boots? Uh, do you wear pants? Do you wear skirts? Depending upon the gender and things like that, of course. Fashion is a big, big part of it. And why conform? Because it's rewarding. People reward us if we dress like certain individuals, other people, and so on. Secondly, we conform because we don't know of any other way to act. I mean, really, a lot of teenagers, a lot of people younger than that, and even older than that, um, they use other people's behavior as a guide to their own. And so, knowing nothing else, they conform just because everyone else is doing it, and that way they stay within the group. Uh, Conformity is rewarding. Conformity is a way to know how to act and how to carry things out. Now, know this: conformity is not automatic. The truth of the matter is, we consider many factors in deciding if we are going to conform, and it really does come into play. So, what factors are going to influence us to decide if we're going to conform with the group or not? Okay. First of all, is the size of the group. The bigger the group, the more we conform. It's just hard to go against a large group of people. It's almost the bigger it gets, the higher the conformity gets and stuff like that. You don't want to be that one person standing out that is different from everyone else, which leads to the second aspect of why we conform. What can influence if we conform, and that's reprisal. If we are convinced the group will respond negatively towards us if we don't conform, okay, then our behavior, will not change and stuff like that. If the group leaves us alone, then and doesn't care, then we may not conform. If the group lets us know that it's going to be unhappy with us if we don't conform, then we're more apt to do it. So, fear of reprisal is a big part of that. I would say cultural influence is also a very, very big part of it. A lot of cultures dictate conformity, they really do. I may say that Japan and Asia very big in conforming to a group. They really truly do. What's interesting about the United States, the USA, is that to a point, we officially are all about being an individual. Officially, we're all about our individuality. Okay. In reality, we are really big on group conformity. We live a lie in that regard. I see it in students at OTC. I see it in kids in high school. I see it in adults. They scream individuality. I want to be my own person, and then they keep within the norms. They conform. So that happens. All right. And then finally, commitment. Commitment refers to our level of group dedication. If a group means an awful lot to us, then we're going to conform. If a group doesn't mean a lot to us, then basically the desire to conform is really not that strong, and it shows in how we handle things. Okay? All right, factors towards if we do or don't conform. Let's turn around and talk about compliance. Okay? And then later obedience. We tend to comply a lot of times, and compliance means we are asked to do something, and so we do it. Conformity is we match our behavior with someone else. Compliance is we are, in essence, asked to do something, not told, but asked to do something, and we do it. And a lot of times we'll comply if basically the person who's wanting us to comply is perceived as an expert. If they tell us something, you might want to do this, you might want to do that, and which is a polite, indirect way of saying, asking you to do something, we will trust them a lot of times. If the person is very influential, okay, um, how they present the message, how they get the word across, and stuff like that, that can influence us. If they ask us, that's compliance. If they tell us to do something and they're influential or an expert, that's obedience. All right, asking us versus telling us. Okay. What about the effects of a group on consumer behavior? Okay, group effects on individual consumer behavior really says a lot here. What kind of impact can a group have on us? There's a term out there called de-individuation. De-individuation simply means a loss of identity in a group. You can stay anonymous. And if you are anonymous within the group, you may turn around and do things you would not normally do otherwise. Okay? Person gets in with a group, and for the most part, they turn around and everyone's drinking and having a good time. Because it's such a large group, some people might turn around and drink way too much because they're in the group. Um, People won't notice them. They can have a good time, and everyone's doing the exact same thing. More on in terms of buying things, we can sometimes be influenced to buy things while in a group that otherwise we wouldn't buy if we were by ourselves. Let me say that again. Studies have found that we tend to buy things in a group, all right, more so, and certain things that we would never buy if we were by ourselves. It really does happen. So shopping in a group is a very big part of that. Shopping patterns, when people go shopping as a group, people shopping in a group tend to be more impulsive. Okay, this is part of the de-individuation. They tend to buy more in general, and people in groups tend to cover more of a store. All right, this you lose your identity, and instead of just going in, getting what you want, and leaving, you and all your friends tend to walk around a lot more. All right, you see more of the store, you grab things more apt to buy them, and so on and so forth. All right, that's what I mean by de-individuation. You sort of lose your identity. We talk about social loafing. Okay, people's behavior in groups, their work effort, okay, tends to diminish if they're part of a group. They don't work as hard as opposed to if they're by themselves, at which time they tend to work a lot harder. Um, People will not put as much effort into a search. People will not put as much work into considering their choices when they are social loafing. If someone buys something, they turn around and just pretty much do the same thing. Okay. We also see what is called a risky shift. People in groups might be more apt to take risks than they would if they were alone. Okay, financial risks, psychological risks, and so on. A lot of that is what is called a diffusion of responsibility. Okay, people will purchase things in a group and take risks that they may not do otherwise. One, they don't want to look bad, but also there's a diffusion of responsibility. If the purchase goes wrong, okay, if things go bad, the individual is not responsible. In the mind of a lot of people, the group is responsible. So, risky shift is all about doing a lot of things that you wouldn't do if you were by yourself. Social loafing is sort of the opposite. Maybe in a group, you don't buy as much because basically you're with the group, they're not buying it, and so on and so forth. Okay? So some different effects on consumer behavior. We lose our identity, we don't buy as much, or sometimes we buy much more than we normally would because the group influences us. There's also what is called resisting group influence. There is actually people out there we call anti-conformists. Anti-conformists are people whose only intention is to go against the norm, no matter what it is. Okay? True anti-conformists are almost impossible to sell to because we sell to groups, we sell to people based off their likes and that others will get in line. A lot of times that's not the case. What is fascinating about anti-conformists, I won't say we can never sell to them, but it's harder, is that if you get a lot of people together who all convince themselves that they're anti-business, okay, we're all anti-conformists, guess what they are? If we're all working towards the same goal of being anti-conformists and we're doing what each other does, you're a conformist to anti-conformity. All right. Then there are what we call independent consumers. Independent consumers are those people who choose things regardless of the norm. Okay, regardless of the norm. These people may choose a product that happens to be one that's popular, but they're not choosing it because everybody else is using it. That's not how they tend to work. You can sell products to people who are independent consumers. All right. You just have to give them the information that they need. All right. Don't market it to them as everyone else is doing that because that typically does not work. And then finally, there are what we call reactive consumers. Reactive consumers are consumers who are pressured, into things. If people are pressured into not buying, they may buy out of spite. Okay, they're reactive, or they may be pressured into buying, and so they don't, even when they truly need the product. Okay, um, they actually fight it. You could lose people who are reactive. You can lose people who are reactive consumers, even if they're brand loyal. If you push them too much, they'll push in the opposite direction. Just that way. I have seen that before. I've seen individuals who turn around and are reactive consumers. They've used a product forever and people start to push them towards that same product. Well, now they don't want it anymore. And it's almost ridiculous, but it does unfortunately happen. Okay. Hope all that helps. Gives you an idea of obedience, conformity, and compliance, and those people that don't want to be part of any of those groups. Take care.